I think it's about being really in tune with who you are to understand, okay, I've kind of come to a certain point, and how do I evolve from this? So that's really comes with, I think, self-awareness and taking the time to understand yourself and listen to yourself a little bit more, but then also being bold enough to go out there and to go and kind of find those answers that you might be looking for internally.
This week on Great Conversations, I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming Vanesse Machill, who is Head of Partnerships at Mido Academy and also the founder of Connection Cove. Vanessa, welcome to Great Conversations.
Thank you so much, Nicola. It's such a pleasure to be here. Really love the conversations that you've been having, and yeah, really an honor to be on the show with you.
I'm really grateful, honestly. Thank you for giving me your time. And let's just jump straight in, shall we? So, you have been left, I think, a really awesome question by our previous guest. So, Vanessa, what is your vision for the world for the next 20 years?
Sure. Yeah, it's I do like to think a lot about the future, and I am quite idealistic in certain senses, but I think what I'd really love to see in the next 20 years, and I do feel that's starting to shift, is I think people being a lot more considerate towards others, a lot more considerate towards the planet that, we call home. Um, with everything that's going on in the world right now, it's really heartbreaking to see how, the times that we're living in, what people are doing to each other, what people are doing to the planet. And we know that, where there's good, there's bad, and and there's all of those things that happen in the world. But at the end of the day, I think that if we could all be a bit more compassionate towards our fellow humans, towards the earth, towards animals, that would be really amazing. And then, because I'm super passionate about education, I think having access to education and information for those who do not have access to that at this point in time, um, would be really amazing to see in the next 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely echo everything that you've said. I think it's so important, and I love that you spoke about this concept of compassion. It's something that is hugely important to me as well, and I'm just really interested, like, in your vision for the world. How do you think we can go about building more compassion?
So I think that when people look at things from a different perspective, when you are, I'll give you a good example. At a restaurant with another person that was quite irritable, and the waiter wasn't sure about something that was on the menu, and they got quite upset. And, the people are very quick to be harsh towards others. So, instead of being harsh to people, or reacting in a not so caring or loving or compassionate way, rather try and look at it from a different perspective, and looking at things from outside of just yourself.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I often feel as well in those situations, the reaction is a reflection of how you would also treat yourself. So, our ability to show compassion to others is a reflection of how much we can show compassion and forgiveness and understanding to ourselves as well.
Oh, I love
So,
that. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
that's a really great perspective. I love that.
thank you. Yeah, I find maybe it's like a reflection of my own journey as well. But I found that the more that I could, the more that I could show myself compassion, like the more that I leaned into that and built that in my own life, the easier it then was to go into the world being more compassionate and open to others. And so I would love to know from you, like, this sense of perspective and getting different perspectives, like, what are some practical ways that people can do that?
Firstly, trusting in yourself that you can accomplish anything that you put your mind to, but also being open to new opportunities. So looking at things with a curious mindset, I think, is really important. So if you're seeing something happening, or you see something that's you're not quite understanding, I think I've just always been super, super curious since a young child. So I'm always asking questions and asking questions. But if you meet someone and you're unsure about something, or you see a situation, and you're unsure about something, I think it's really good to ask the questions, and to look at the world like a curious child almost. Like, why is that this way, and why is that way, and how do we how do we do it in a different way? And I think that that's also where kind of creativity comes in. There's different creative solutions that might come out of the way that you looking at a problem in front of you. And if you look at it from a mindset of like a curious child, um, that's where you also might have a different train of thought on how you can potentially solve that problem or how you can approach the situation.
Well, I mean, you're speaking to an absolute kindred spirit here, because I think that's probably my middle name is curiosity. So I absolutely am loving what you're saying, and I obviously really want to know, like, where did your curious mindset come from? So talk to me about your journey, and yeah, particularly with sort of curiosity and how that's shown up in your life, and how it's led to where you are today.
My parents told me that since I was a little girl, every time we arrived somewhere, I would get out the car and I would just walk around the place and go scout out the area. And I think I've just been really curious even since I was young. But and I think that that is actually what's led me to taking these really big leaps of faith in my career. But I do think that that concept of perspective and gaining new perspective is something that has really driven me to understanding different aspects of people, different aspects of the world, different aspects of career that I wouldn't have known otherwise. In fact, that's how I transitioned from one industry working in business travel to go into AI, because I was like, there must be something out there that's really calling me. So I think it's about being really in tune with who you are to understand, okay, I've kind of come to a certain point and how do I evolve from this? So that's really comes with, I think, self-awareness and taking the time to understand yourself and listen to yourself a little bit more, but then also being bold enough to go out there and to go and kind of find those answers that you might be looking for internally.
What is the boldest, bravest question you've ever asked someone?
That's a great question that you've just asked me.
I'm just coming out
um
with the massive ones today, aren't I? I'm so
yeah,
inspired.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I think, sure, that's a really tough one. The boldest question that I've asked someone. I think
to be
it
fair,
was,
to be fair, that's a really
sorry,
unfair question, because I don't know how I would answer that. I'd have to think long and hard. I've just thrown that on
thank
you.
you. Like there's a couple that pop into my mind. Like one
Go
was for
on.
like from a business perspective, one of them was just one of the biggest business deals we'd been working on forever, where it was just like, are we going to get this business? We've done everything that we can, and I just had to be bold and be like, are we going to get this or not?
And
I
how
think
did that play out? Like, what was the consequence of that?
the consequence of that was I think easing the mind a little, firstly for all of us, because everybody had been working really hard on putting together this proposal, and we everyone was just like, we're doing this without really a lot of information. So I think it was just helping ease my own and everybody else's mind. I think it showed the other party on the other side that we also understand the value that we're adding. We also know our worth, and that we're not scared to actually ask you for the business, especially considering what we've put in.
I just hear that you've got out of your own way, like this pursuit of perspective and curiosity, and then asking questions has empowered you to step into your greatness.
Oh, I just love how you've put that. That's so beautiful. Yeah, you've put that in such a beautiful way, and a great perspective yet again. I'm probably going to say that word another 30 times, so I hope it doesn't get overused. But that's a really great perspective, and it's we've all gone through our challenges. I've heard you also talk about, you going through challenges that have actually, the consequence of that has been that you flourish, and it's exactly the way you've put it there now. Is I think that that curiosity tying into understanding yourself a lot better, not just the world around you, but yourself. And I think for me, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been a lot more curious with myself than I have about the world outside of me. So I've spent a lot more time doing meditation. I've got my own spiritual practices that, it's really about reflection, introspection, understanding what feels aligned with my heart and my soul, and what feels misaligned. And it's so interesting how we go through these different journeys in life and we think that it's right for us. And you kind of get to a point where something happens or someone happens and things just really change. And when you look at things down the line, you look back and you're like, wow, that was actually really not what I wanted to be doing anymore. So super grateful for all those challenges. But I think that's been the biggest um, yeah, these last few years have been the biggest time for me in terms of personal growth and coming back into my own sense of self-worth, my own kind of power. I don't want to use, I don't, power's got a weird connotation to it sometimes, but I always do tell my friends and the people I love to step back into your power and to know your power and to know your worth. And I think that the best way to understand that is to really know yourself and spend time with yourself.
Yeah, and you're so right. I feel like it's I look at this there's a really interesting dichotomy, I think, at the moment. I feel like maybe more people are isolated and alone in the way that, we live our life. And particularly a lot of life is lived online as well. So I feel like maybe more people are isolated and alone, but we're not alone with ourselves. And I absolutely agree with you. There's so many distractions that take us out of ourselves. Um, that even the time that we're spending alone is not really in relationship with ourselves and is getting to, we don't spend it getting to know ourselves fully and deeply. It's all, we're just distracted. And so, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I wonder as well, though, and maybe you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but I feel like oftentimes there's something happens that is that catalyst for, well, I'm speaking from my personal experience. There's a catalyst in my life at times when I've done this introspection and I've focused on personal growth and change. Um, and I just wonder, was there an event that happened, or have there been events in your life that have encouraged you to go down this route of personal growth and reflection and development?
I would say that it's definitely all, not okay, now maybe not all, but majority of my kind of big, shall we call them, growth spurts and introspection spurts have come from catalysts. Definitely, I for many years in my early career, even though I was curious and moving into kind of understanding who I am and what I bring to the world, I still believed in a lot of the social constructs, if I can call them that, around this is your career journey and this is the ladder that you have to climb and this is how you have to show up in the world and this is what you got to do to get ahead. And you know I've always been very ethical in the work, in the work that I do. I've always believed that you have to work with integrity, and when you put your best foot forward, you'll get ahead somehow. But unfortunately, also working in corporate culture, it can be a little dog eat dog, and you got to make friends with the right people and make sure you don't really piss off the wrong people or upset the wrong people. And I think it's been really interesting to navigate, especially because I've moved through different roles, throughout my career, and moved into different types of organizations and experienced different cultures. It was very interesting. It's interesting for me now to look back on how much value I placed on fitting into those boxes and ticking those boxes throughout my career. So I truly believe that if it wasn't for those catalysts that actually happened, I probably would have stayed on a path that maybe wasn't the best path for me for even longer than I really needed to. One of my most exciting times in my life and my career, uh, you know, remember I was saying something is happening or someone is happening. That was more of a someone that was happening. And if it wasn't for that person that came in and at that point really ruined everything for me and kind of put me on this whole different trajectory, if it wasn't for that happening, I would absolutely not be where I am right now.
Thank you for sharing, because I think, and I would like to go into the concept of workplace bullying, which is what you're talking to, a little bit more. I think it's well, it's a few things, as you say. You grow up with these social constructs that you then assume as your own, and then you're living your life in that way, and then something happens, or someone comes in And suddenly it upends and changes everything. Because as you say, we're very linear in how we think, you know, cause and effect. If we do this, society tells us that we will get this in return. So, you know, you're showing up doing your thing, and then one person comes in with a different mindset, or as you say, had it out for you, and it totally upends and changes everything. At least a quarter of the workforce, particularly in the UK, say that they are bullied in the workplace. So it's something that's so common. You know, we think that maybe bullying is a concept that we leave behind in school, but actually we don't. And it's really common in workplaces. And, you know, as you say, it can fundamentally change not only the trajectory of somebody's career, but also it must have had a massive impact on, you know, your identity and yourself. And as you say, these beliefs that you'd, you know, lived your life by suddenly were sort of challenged by this individual. So if you wouldn't mind, like, can we go into that a little bit more? Because I'd love to understand, like, how did you emotionally process and deal with the bullying that was being inflicted on you in the workplace by this individual?
It's interesting because before all of that kind of started with the individual, like I said, I was in this really beautiful space in my career, and it was, it was a role I was incredibly proud of. I worked with the most amazing people across the world and built a really fantastic, um, just community of people in that workplace. It was like, it was the perfect job. It was the perfect everything. And I got along with everybody so well. You know, my clients, my partners absolutely loved me. And this individual came in, and I started sensing a very different approach to me than what everybody else had. And at that point, I think I still had these idealistic blinders on my eyes. And, because, and it's interesting. And it's because someone else that was actually a workplace bully as well once said this thing about everybody really innately is good in their hearts. They don't, people do bad things, but they're actually really good people in their hearts. And I don't know why that stuck with me, but someone that said that stuck with me. And I just, I thought, no, they're still good. They're great with everybody else. With me, there was a very disingenuous and kind of manipulative approach to things. But then I started thinking that it was me, and it, you kind of then, okay, but why am I, having to face this type of, um, how can I say it, like this, the way that this person was kind of dealing with me around things. But I think I had this perspective that everyone will mean well, and everyone will want the best for you. But I learned very quickly there that not everybody does want the best for you, and not everybody wants to see you succeed. Yeah, this individual started, um, doing things, manipulating actual facts, to make me look like something else, and to make them look like, a little bit better. Make me look like the bad one and make them look like the good one. And that's where it really started shaking me to my core, because I felt that I couldn't do anything about it. I try to align with different people and have conversations with different people to get some perspective. But at that point, we were already so far down the line. This individual had already plan they I don't want to say that they planned it, but it was as if they just kind of knew this was now the next couple of weeks, and this is how we're going to handle these couple of weeks, and take no prisoners. The result of that was a massive, um like hitting rock bottom. I totally hit rock bottom after that. My entire career, I was questioning my entire career. I was questioning my competence, my abilities, the value that I add. I was questioning my future. I was just questioning why I'd actually put so much value. I think I said to myself one day, like, why do I keep working for these companies? And then I just become a number at the end of the day. And, everyone else is great, but you have one person, and that one person can make you feel so worthless, just through small little small little things that they might do, small little things that they might say. And then I had to question, like, why am I putting so much value? Why do I place so much value on, you know, my reputation in the workplace, or building myself up in a company where that's actually, that's happening. And yeah, so it was really difficult. I kind of really did hit rock bottom. I did a lot of soul searching, a lot of reflection, and I spent a lot of time just working through all the difficult things, but also trying to rebuild, like, who am I and how do I move forward into my life in the most authentic way that I can, and take on things that are in alignment with what I actually want and what I actually deserve.
I'm really sorry that you had to experience that, because it's horrific. And what you, for me, as as you were talking and sharing, what jumped out is the stripping of your humanity in that situation. I mean, that's what's so pervasive about bullying. And it's interesting because I very much go into the world believing that people are good, and an inherent goodness of individuals. And yeah, maybe as I'm getting older, I'm getting a little bit wiser to that. And I actually heard the Archbishop of Canterbury. I was listening to a podcast that he was on recently, and he shared that the perspective of the Anglican Church is, the starting point is everybody has got, is sinful. And so actually that he doesn't believe in the inherent goodness of humanity and in humans, and that actually it's about sin. And then, the role of the church is to, I guess, save people from sin. I think when you go into the world with this belief in the inherent goodness of people, when you're faced with darkness, and as you say, the reality that some people are just bad people, and some people really do have sin, darkness in their heart, and they don't want the best for you. And it's really confronting, as you say, when you've built your life with this belief and this perspective, and that shaped your behaviors. I'm not surprised that it was such a pivotal moment in your life where you had to, as you say, sort of, reconfront who you were, and your beliefs, and your identity, and then go from there in terms of rebuilding your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you've said that so beautifully, and thank you for sharing that perspective from the Archbishop, because that's lovely for me to hear too. I think I, over the years, really got caught up in just wanting to believe, like you said, that everybody is good, and that, inherently there's that goodness in everyone's heart. But that's a really interesting perspective, that it's actually coming from the opposite side of things, and you kind of have to learn the good side, which, when it actually makes sense. Like, makes a lot of sense, because it's so much more difficult to have patience with others, to have compassion with others, to believe in others when everything is going incredibly difficult, like incredibly tough.
I want to like go full circle back to like how we started, and to ask this question again about like practical stuff, because I think, let's assume that we do go into the world from a point that people are born with sin in their hearts, and we have to call them over, but convince them to come over to the light side. And they have to make, it's about, like, it's actively choosing, isn't it, that we have to empower them to make the choice to show up in a way that is more compassionate and loving, and to maybe leave that sin and darkness to one side. How do we do that? Like, how do we do that practically? Or maybe not how, as a collective. How are you doing that in your life and in your work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've always believed that, and I'm really glad that you kind of added that last part to say, okay, how do I do it? Because I strongly believe that every single person is very much on their own unique journey. They've got a history that's made up who they are today, and their own sets of motivations, demotivations, strengths and challenges, and it's going to be different for everybody. But I think, for me, the important thing is, firstly, trusting in yourself. I keep coming back to, like, understanding yourself, knowing yourself, spending time with yourself, because that's where you can truly build up your sense of confidence. Like, this is who I am, and this is what I bring to the world. That allows you to be a little bit more bold and take on new opportunities or new conversations or talk to new people and do new things. And I think having that kind of growth mindset, that we continue to grow through everything that we grow through what we go through, is really important. And I know that it's difficult to see things as a lesson when we're going through really difficult things, but to trust in yourself and to trust in your journey, as long as you're aligned with what you feel is right for you. And even though that path that I was on, for example, wasn't necessarily a path that I was going to go on for much longer, if I had to look back at it now, because it wasn't really in alignment with what I wanted to be doing, truly in my heart, I wouldn't have known that had I not gone through that. So, if you're just staying in a single lane all the time, there's no room for growth and expansion and experiencing new things and being like, oh wow, I'm actually really good at that, or oh wow, I really love that, or oh wow, that type of work is amazing. And it's quite interesting because it's been through all the challenges, and just saying, whatever's going to happen, I'm going to get through it. And also having the support of family and friends that have been there to help uplift me when I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay, I don't have any more optimism left in me. um it's through all of that you can come back to a sense of, this is me, this is Vanessa, this is who I am. What are the things in my life that make me happy? What are the things that I want to move towards? And if I look at it full circle again, where I am now and where I'm working now with the academy, that's actually something I'd been supporting for quite some time. I mean, my grandfather, I've got a whole family of educators, and for some reason, I don't know why I never thought education was a thing. But then, from COVID being retrenched, I got into education, and that all loopholed into me then becoming an educator and then working in the education space, but particularly working in underserved communities. Like, that's something that I'm so passionate about. Maintaining that relationship with yourself is really important. um, and I think having compassion for yourself, especially, you mentioned earlier, being an empath, or being an empath and being sensitive to kind of the cruelty of the world sometimes. You also mentioned boundaries, and that's something that we never really, I mean, in my world, we were never really taught about boundaries growing up. You get taught about physical boundaries, like people can't come close to you in this way or whatever, but emotional boundaries and mental boundaries. And that's something I've worked really, really hard on in this last while. So that's something else I would say that people should really focus on is, what doesn't feel right in your soul? Like, what doesn't make you feel right? Like, do less of that. What feels really good, do more of that. Figure out what those boundaries are for you, because I've also had to limit my interactions with people that I feel are draining my energy, that make me feel really low, make me feel really negative. Friendships that I've had for many years that unfortunately I felt so terrible about, the fact that we were losing touch and all of that. And then I was like, well, maybe that's just a phase of that, the phase of my life that has passed. But actually, this is where I'm at now, and this is what I need to maintain, so that I bring my best self to my life every single day. This is my life. It's I have to live it in the way that I want to, and therefore I will make decisions about what I feel is right and what is wrong for me. And I respect everybody else's opinions, and I respect everybody else's ways of doing things. And I absolutely understand the fact that the world will always be full of people that start at that place from darkness, and we've got to work our way into the light. Um, but I think it's important to maintain, yeah, just that relationship with yourself, so that you understand where you need to build those boundaries, so that you understand what's going to help you flourish, and what to avoid that's going to maybe kind of set you back.
Yeah, I absolutely love everything that you've said. And I also, I mean, obviously, importance of friends and family, affirming friendships. I love what you're saying about emotional boundaries as well. And actually, what I wanted to spotlight was the volunteering piece, because I think that's also huge when we think about our well-being. Actually helping other people has a huge impact on how we feel about ourselves and what we learn about ourselves as well. So, you know, making time in your life to volunteer, to give back, to, because I think it opens the door to that meaning. And again, I think, I love how this theme has sort of naturally woven itself through our conversation, but it is about perspective and stories, as you said. It's like this understanding through volunteering and introducing yourself to a different community of individuals. You start to appreciate other people's lived experiences. You know, you start to appreciate their stories and what they bring to the world, which then I think naturally, you know, not only do you feel good about helping other people, but it also starts to elevate the compassion that we spoke about at the beginning as well. I think the more that you're sort of exposed to that, yeah, I love absolutely everything that you've said, Vanessa. Um, and so we are nearing the end of this conversation, which I'm very disappointed about actually. I could talk to you for hours. Um, but Vanessa, I'm really curious to hear your answer to this question. So I ask all my guests, what is something that other people value that you don't?
I think a lot of people put a lot of value on staying in the same job for many years, built, working up that corporate ladder and chasing the title and the money. And I don't really value that. I think that I think it's really important to, obviously we need to live and we need to pay things like rent or mortgages or, feed ourselves, and that's a given. But I think that there's a lot of value being put on that career ladder, that linear way of thinking. And I have got quite the opposite opinion. I think it's that when we actually move away from that ladder and we start taking a bit of a detour. I think I've heard you say the word detour as well in some of your talks. But when we take those detours, we meet new people along the way. We uncover new opportunities along the way we would not even know existed. Because I always talk to my team about, you know what you don't know, but then you also don't know what you don't know. So, all of those components that are going along, all of those components form part of that detour there. It's people, experiences, perspectives, opportunities that would just come about when you actually say, you know what, I've done what I can here, but I'm now going to go and look for something else. So that would be my response. Yeah.
It's I feel like what you know, it's that don't be afraid of the unknown and change. Like as you say, it's the sort of the familiarity and the rigidity that people get comfort from. And it's I think you mentioned it earlier about a growth mindset. It's leaning into that, isn't it? It's like, if you can just overcome fear and embrace a bit of uncertainty and the unknown in your life, as you say, it's magical what you can then open the door to, and people, experiences, careers, and yeah, it's pretty magical. I think to dance in that space of, I feel like for me one of the biggest blessings in my life has now been my ability to, I'm going to use this concept, I don't know why, but to dance in the space of curiosity, which I think is very much where you live your life. And there's so much richness and that's present in that, isn't there? When you do that.
Absolutely. I so agree with you. And you've put that so beautifully in dancing in the space of curiosity. I mean, it's not always easy. And, I'm at a point where, when you just look at the peaks and troughs of life, and you look at the peaks and troughs of earnings, even just like earning money. I was in a very nice role and earning a lot of good money, and I'm now kind of earning a quarter of what I used to earn. And it's tough. You gotta you gotta figure out, okay, you can't do that anymore, you gotta do it this way. And there's a lot of adjusting. But I every single day I am grateful and happy that I'm working on things that I feel passionate about, that I feel aligned to, and that I'm working in a space. I think especially working with people that see my value, and that that allow me to be my authentic self. And I think that that's my big thing. When you asked me about 20 years from now, I think it's about creating space and like creating space for curiosity for yourself to dance in, but also us creating space for others. um yeah, and creating space for growth and for newness. And so yeah, that's kind of just come full circle for me there. Yeah.
That is such a beautiful, beautiful way to end our conversation. Vanessa, thank you so much for your time. I've absolutely adored this.
Thank you so much, Nicola. It's been so wonderful chatting with you. I love your perspectives on everything and the way that you just encapsulate my thoughts in a beautiful punctual sentence or two. I'm a little bit of a scatterbrain. So thank you so much. This has been a lovely opportunity. And I hope that someone out there, if there's just one thing that they kind of take back from this, I would be super happy. So yeah, thank you.
What an awesome conversation with Vanessa. I am so inspired. And if you are equally inspired and want to build a growth mindset for your life, then head over to integrate.net. We've got all the tools and resources you need to get started. As always, I'd like to thank my editor, Stian Moritz, and musician, Jamie Jenkin. I'm sending you all so much love. Bye for now.